Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture of literature. I'm Adrian Fortin, and we are here for another poetry discussion, a poetry discussion that comes to us, of course, from Sylvia Plath. The poem in question is Tulips, and it reads as such. Tulips. The tulips are too excitable. It is winter here. Look how white everything is, how quiet, how snowed in. I am learning peacefulness, lying by myself quietly as the light lies on these white walls, this bed, these hands. I am nobody. I have nothing to do with explosions. I have given my name and my day clothes up to the nurses, and my history to the anesthesist, and my body to the surgeons. They have propped my head between the pillow and the sheet cuff, like an eye between two white lids that will not shut. Stupid pupil. It has to take everything in. The nurses pass and pass. They are no trouble. They pass the way gulls pass, inland in their white caps, doing things with their hands, one just the same as another. So it is impossible to tell how many there are. My body is a pebble to them. They tend it as water. They tend it as water tends to pebbles it must run over, smoothing them gently. They bring me numbness in their bright needles. They bring me sleep. Now I have lost myself. I am sick of baggage, my patent leather overnight case like a black pillbox, my husband and child smiling out of the family photo. Their smiles catch on to my skin, little smiling hooks. I have let things slip. A 30-year-old cargo boat stubbornly hanging on to my name and address. They have swabbed me clear of my loving associations. Scared and bare on the green plastic pillowed trolley, I watch my tease-it, my bureaus of linen. My books sink out of sight, and the water went over my head. I am a nun now. I have never been so pure. I didn't want any flowers. I only wanted to lie with my hand turned up to be utterly empty. How free it is. You have no idea how free. The peacefulness is so big it dazes you, and it asks nothing, a name tag, a few trinkets. It is what the dead close on, finally. I imagine them shutting their mouths on it, like a communion tablet. The tulips are too red in the first place. They hurt me. Even through the gift paper I could hear them breathe, lightly through their white swaddlings like an awful baby. Their redness talks to my wound, it corresponds. They are subtle, they seem to float. Though they weigh me down, upsetting me with their sudden tongues and their color, a dozen red lead sinkers round my neck. Nobody watched me before. Now I am watched. The tulips turn to me, the window behind me, where once a day the light slowly widens and slowly thins, and I see myself, flat, ridiculous, a cut paper shadow between the eye of the sun and the eyes of the tulips, and I have no face. I have wanted to efface myself. The vivid tulips eat my oxygen. Before they came, the air was calm enough, coming and going, breath by breath, without any fuss. Then the tulips filled it up, like a loud noise. Now the air snags and eddies round them the way a river snags and eddies round a sunken rust-red engine. They concentrate my attention, that was happy, playing and resting without committing itself. The walls, also, seem to be warming themselves. The tulips should be behind bars like dangerous animals. They are opening like the mouth of some great African cat, and I am aware of my heart. It opens and closes. Its bowl of red blooms out of sheer love of me. The water I taste is warm and salt, like the sea, and comes from a country far away as health. So, Ted Hughes says that this poem is about a bouquet of tulips that Sylvia Plath received while recovering from an appendectomy. Does it seem like something so simple as that? Now, an appendectomy, not simple, I understand. But does it seem like something that was, it feels here like we're at Sylvia Plath's funeral itself. There is, and I'm going to use this word, but not in a condescending fashion, not in a critique way, not a criticism way, not a negative way. There is more melancholy here, I think, than in any of the Emily Dickinson poems, which are about death, being dead. I heard a fly buzz when I died. There's more melancholy here, more melodrama here than in those poems, I think. But it is amazing how any catastrophe, and again, I don't know the story behind Sylvia Plath's appendectomy. Normally, you have an appendectomy when there's a problem with your appendix, and you can die from that. You can die very easily from that. But any type of even simple catastrophe in life really resets you and makes you look at things in a new fashion. So I had to take a coworker home recently in a snowstorm because he couldn't get an Uber. He couldn't get an Uber on his phone. And my truck's been having problems, been having all sorts of problems. And the roads were not good. And I got him to his place, put the truck in reverse, backed out, put it in drive, truck died. Right there, boom, just like that. And all of the things that ran through my mind in that very moment. So I had a literature course in college, the very first literature course I had as an English major. Really beat me up, really just destroyed me because I was not ready for it, and I was not ready for the type of time commitment that some of that literature takes to read. And one of the things that we did in that class is we were discussing As I Lay Dying, coincidentally, but we were discussing As I Lay Dying, and the professor was going off on all sorts, the Bundren family. So they're not just poor whites, destitute whites, but she was calling them poor whites. And like the race mattered, really, but the people in this novel just destitute, absolutely destitute. And doing all sorts of crazy things in order just to get by. There's the one daughter talking about, I saved these eggs so we could make cookies, so we could sell them. Was it cookies or cakes? I can't remember, but we needed to sell them to get that money. One of the sons is making a coffin for the mother character because they can't afford to buy one. He's going to make one. They're going to take their mother's dead body across country, all of these things. All these strange things going on. And the thought struck me. So many of us are just one bad day away from being a Bundren, right? At that time, I had coverage on my truck, but I didn't, obviously I had insurance, but I didn't have full coverage. Something happens. If the other person, so for example, I had no health insurance, right? So for example, some Yagoff T-bones me on the way to work and he doesn't have insurance and I break my leg, I've got $100,000 in medical expenses, my truck is gone, my job is gone, all of these things can happen in the flash of an eye, the blink of an eye. Right there, flash in the pan, boom, life's done. Life's over. Your life, you still got to go on, but you're abundant now. You're scheming on things. You're destitute. And that is what is happening, I think, in this poem, is that something has, this is, the speaker, we're just going to refer to the speaker as Sylvia Plath here. It doesn't need to be Sylvia Plath, but Sylvia Plath's struggles, mental struggles, well documented, right? Suicidal. This is a suicidal person who mentions having had a child, which gives you not just a reason to live, but a reason you better be alive. Bringing another person into the world, right? And then has something happen like a medical emergency, but lives afterwards. There's a lot of compounding emotion if we allow ourselves to assume our speaker is Sylvia Plath. Tulips, often is the case, tulips are used to symbolize quote unquote perfect love. Does this speaker sound like someone who is exhibiting perfect love? Sound like someone who feels she is perfectly loved? No. The thing that sticks out to me most about this poem is that phrase, I am nobody. Again, to make an Emily Dickinson reference, I'm nobody, who are you? Right? But that phrase, I'm nobody, that's a bad place in life to be. That's a terrible feeling place in life to be. I'm nobody. The feeling of nobodiness is something that compounds very fast, compounds very quickly. Any type of setback feels like 10 setbacks. Any type of situation in life that one does not want to be in but is stuck in. So, for example, someone who does not want to be encumbered in this life by a child but has one feels like having 10, right? That feeling of nobodiness compounds on itself to the point where even small reminders like flowers. If someone's bringing you flowers, it's obvious that you are not nobody to them. But when you feel like nobody, that whole thing feels like it's just a finger wagging in your face. You're nobody, all right, and here's some flowers. Not because you're not nobody, but to remind you that you are. There's so many other things you should have done to deserve these flowers. And that seems like the point where our speaker is at. And the last thing I want to talk about when talking about this poem, flowers, any type of flowers, is sort of a dual symbol, right? Flowers are life. Flowers are vibrant. And their vibrancy is discussed here. Pardon me. Their vibrancy is discussed here in length. But we also leave flowers on a grave. We also take flowers to a funeral. All of these things that we do with flowers to celebrate the life of someone who is dead. But we've got this stanza here. I didn't want flowers. I only wanted to lie with my hands turned up and be utterly empty. How free it is, you have no idea. How free. The peacefulness is so big it dazes you. And it asks nothing, a name tag, a few trinkets. It is what the dead close on, finally. I imagine them shutting their mouths on it, like a communion tablet. In the same way that the flowers themselves represent perfect love to someone who is reflecting on their own nobodiness. These flowers that represent life are doing so in a finger-wagging way to someone who seemingly wants to die. These flowers are representing somethingness to someone yearning for nothingness. In that final stanza there, the walls also seem to be warming themselves. The tulips should be behind bars like dangerous animals. They are opening like the mouth of some great African cat. And I am aware of my heart. It opens and closes. Its bowl of red blooms out of sheer love of me. The water I taste is warm and salt like the sea, and comes from a country far away as health. There again, that image of the flowers as a great liveliness, a vivacious type of being, like a dangerous animal. They are opening like the mouth of some great African cat. When the speaker says that the walls also seem to be warming themselves, it is with disdain. The speaker here talks about the sort of sterile environment of the hospital itself. And the sterile environment of the hospital itself seemed to be something in which this speaker was reveling, or at least sort of like learned helplessness, seemed to be comfortable there. That's sort of the way that I have always thought about learned helplessness. It's not about wanting to be lesser or wanting the abuse to keep going. It's about being comfortable there because you've convinced yourself psychologically that's where you are and what you belong in. That is what you deserve. And our speaker has sort of contemplated their way in this poem to deserving the sterile environment of the hospital. In that last stanza there, the great vivaciousness of the tulips is not simply constrained to the tulips themselves. They are so vivacious, they are so lively, that the liveliness from those tulips is spreading even to the walls of the hospital itself. This is a very emotionally complex poem. There's a lot of start and stop here. And that is sort of, emotional complexity is what we have to expect when we come to Plath for poetry in the first place, right? Reading a Sylvia Plath poem is not like seeing a Marvel movie. Probably not going to make you feel great. There's not going to be the great score at the end and the after credits scene to a Sylvia Plath poem. But man, does this one pull you in a lot of directions. That's all I have for this poetry discussion. I hope to have you back for the next poetry discussion I have on the channel. I also do poetry reviews. I do short story discussions, short story reviews, novel read-alongs, novel reviews, all of these things I have playlists for on the channel. So if you like this sort of thing, it really helps me out here on the channel if you decide to hit that like button. And if you're here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button in order to make sure that YouTube suggests these types of videos to you in the future. Again, I hope to see you next time, and go away.